Today on Wasted Time Reviews, we're going to be reviewing Aliens vs. Predator, and we played that on the PC.
Is it good? Is it bad? Waste your time and find out. Aliens vs. Predator, released a few weeks ago, is a first-person shooter that revives the Alien vs. Predator, a series of games that came out earlier this decade. It follows the fight between the aliens, the colonial marines, and the predators. In it, there are 3 campaigns, each following one of the species, and it takes place on a human colony world near the ruins of a ancient predator complex. It's somewhat works like an FPS, like Half-Life, in that there's like no aiming down your aiming down your sights. It's just there's a targeting thingy in the middle of your screen.
So yeah, it's first ability is your left mouse, and then your second ability on each gun is just your right click.
Yeah, it's along with its.
It's more arcadey.
Yeah, it's more arcadey. And then it's also works like an FPS for Predators and Aliens, but seeing as those two are more melee focused, it's not quite.
They feel different, but it works.
It does work.
Pretty well.
And there's also a fantastic multiplayer player versus player mode and a survival mode where you play Marines fighting against an onslaught of aliens.
Yeah, the multiplayer modes are things like team species deathmatch, just deathmatch, mixed team species deathmatch, which is really cool.
Yeah, well, the difference between species deathmatch and mixed species deathmatch is that species deathmatch, you got 3 teams, each representing a different species, and mixed species, you have 2 teams, and so you have each of the all the species represented on both teams.
Yeah, so that's when it gets really interesting, because then you can do some really weird tactics. But just one species deathmatch also involves a completely different type of gameplay almost.
Yes, in particular when it comes to the Marines really have to work together in that regard.
Right. Yeah, they're gonna all die.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the pros and cons.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right. So for the pros for the game, I'll have to say that each set of species had their own abilities, and they were pretty balanced out. Where one succeeded, the other failed. Where one succeeded, one failed, and just kind of vice versa.
And each can hold its own against the other 2 fairly well.
Which I thought in the beginning that Marines were going to get screwed over, but they, with the mix of their, ranged weapons and motion sensor, they actually can prove to be a good adversary against an alien or a predator.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The multiplayer modes and the single player modes were very enjoyable, and I have to say that I had a lot of fun playing both multiplayer and single player, because they provide a completely different experience, but they're both very fresh and new. Anything else that we should say?
The survival mode is very enjoyable and extremely challenging.
But another good thing is the fact that the hit detection for aliens and predators isn't like buggy at all or anything, and I've only had maybe a few times where it messes up a little bit, but for the most part it works perfectly.
Yeah, because back in my Battlefield days, I mean, the melee combat in that was complete BS.
No,
it's like a dyslexic kid.
This one works out pretty well. This is probably the best melee I've ever seen in a first-person game.
Indeed. Especially with the grabbing and trophy kills.
Right, yeah, because if you sneak up behind someone as a predator or an alien, you can do a grab or trophy kill, and they are very fun to watch.
Indeed.
Probably some of the glorious I've ever seen in a game.
Yeah, your mom doesn't want to see it.
I mean, I literally one time playing a Predator, I got a guy from the front right after I stunned him, and my guy literally held him up, stabbed him in the chest, and then put his hand into the dude and ripped his head through through the hole that he created with his wrist blade out of his stomach, basically.
Ooh.
Grabbing his spine, just ripping it out. It was insane. That's so. If you like gore, this is also a game that you might like to look at a little bit.
Yeah.
But every game has its pros, but also has its cons.
But for being a game out in 2010, you'd think it looked pretty amazing, but it really looks like it's It looks like it's
Like,
from a few years ago.
Maybe a decent graphic game from like 2008.
Yeah, 2007, 2008.
I mean, yeah.
Also, it also has rather poor performance on average computers. Like, I have to turn everything down to low, which kind of breaks my heart, because, like, if you'll remember, in our Modern Warfare 2 review, we said that Modern Warfare 2 had really good looking graphics and was able to be played on not all that great computers, and yet those two came together really well, and even though it was a cross-platform, AVP is cross-platform and falls flat on its face in this regard.
And another thing that we noticed was there's no dedicated servers, which most multiplayer games on the PC should have. But
cross-platform programmers are getting pretty damn lazy.
Yeah, but if you're playing this on the Xbox 360 or the PS3, most of these complaints are something that you're not gonna really have to worry about graphic-wise
and the matchmaking's it's okay. It's just that
it works, but it's better than Halo 3 because I had so many problems with that. Yeah. If I was gonna make an example of bad matchmaking, it'd be that game.
Yeah.
That or Gears of War 2, but I played that when it first came out, so I don't know if it's changed at all. Let's just go to our final verdict.
Okay. Jake and I agree that this is you probably want to pick it up if you are a fan of the original AVP games or think that the concept of this is really cool, like in my case. But if you like normal shooters like, say, Counter-Strike, Modern Warfare, Battlefield, Halo maybe, I would probably skip out. Or if you are somewhat interested, you might want to just rent it for a console.
Right. But that concludes our review of Aliens vs. Predator.
Yeah. Tune in next time.
Right. See ya.